Learning from Fusion. Lessons at EA Canada Fusion. There is no education or background that could prepare anyone for what was involved in building an organization and business from literally nothing into the second most profitable division within electronic arts worldwide. I learned so much at EA Canada Fusion. I am proud of my ascent from technical director to chief technology officer in 5 years, and shortly afterwards to chief operating officer with the new CTO reporting to me. I was and am proud of all of the amazing things that Fusion and I were able to accomplish. During our ascent, we declared slogans for goalposts that we believed would drive Fusion's organization and product quality forward and rally the teams. The most powerful and simple slogan spanning the organization and product quality was the road to fill in the blank. Where it was the road to product quality, it was measured by Metacritic, or the number of people for the business that we should have in our group. For product quality, the road to 85 Metacritic. We decreed that 85 Metacritic was the lowest acceptable rating to define a product that we had for quality. The organization road, the road to 85, meant we had to hire people until we were 85 total people in count. Then there was the road to 150 head count, then the road to 250, the road to 325 people. As Fusion grew, so did our portfolio and expectations of more and bigger games on more platforms and more ways to leverage and share common tools and libraries and pipelines, even sharing common game engines and frameworks and shells. We were given more money to go bigger, and each time we succeeded, they gave us even more money to go bigger yet. Fusion failed due to political drama, and staff with integrity like me and Dave and Tony and Dan from Fusion had all eventually abandoned the sinking ship as it was cannibalized from all directions after we lost our champion of Warren Wall and John Schappert and Paul Lee. Fusion no longer had any EA worldwide elite champions, and worse, it had EA Canada anti-champions that had been envious of Fusion's rise for years, and they seized the opportunity to install their own leader when Dave himself left. And their new leader drove Fusion into the ground in under a year. The lesson was clear. Leadership and management matters. It matters a lot. I have had terrible bosses and good bosses. Good bosses are refreshing and they are empowering. Bad bosses, who seemingly represent 99% of the managers and leads and leaders out there, are controlling and limiting and are very often insecure. I am reminded of one of my rules that I often shared with people over my career. I would share the reasons why people fail. I have distilled the reasons people fail down to 3 things and no more. I have challenged everyone that I share my reasons people fail to show me a 4th reason, because I am confident that there must be more reasons than I have conceived, but never yet has someone shown a 4th, much less a 5th or 6th reason that explains why people fail. The 3 reasons people fail, in my opinion. The first reason, they are unwilling. The person refuses to do or complete the objective. When someone has an attitude and they decline to take on an assignment or a task that is obviously needs to be done, well, they're going to fail, obviously. There are many forms of unwilling, though. like being unreliable and flaky due to disinterest or disapproval of the work, or preferring to do something else and not worrying about the consequences of not doing their assigned job, or feigning ignorance to gain education time, to buy time, waiting for someone else to finish the task, or perhaps hoping it will be forgotten or even canceled outright. Other than the insidious, dishonest ways of being unwilling, there is also the outright refusal of doing an assignment. Some people may claim conscientious objector because the work offends their moral code. Others may allege religious or racial inequity, or justify their disregard of authority and expectation of delivering valuable work. The only option for the unwilling is to find someone else to do the work and assign the refuser something that they will work on. But this puts them in authority going forward, not you, who are supposed to be their supervising manager. Well, you could force them to finish the assigned work, despite their slow speed and potentially low quality, seeing as they will feel they are oppressed, and their probable retaliatory resentment and undermining sabotage of future projects and other staff morale. Yes, indeed, usually it is not a good idea to force staff to work on something that they have refused to work on. It rarely ends well. And then you have a third option for those that are unwilling. You can fire them and find someone else to do the work. Put a head on a pike and send the message that resistance is futile. Well, this solution can work well if the refuser is a social pariah that the team would feel relieved was exited from the company. However, even mediocre, possibly below average employees have friends and allies. You must assume that anyone that you fire will have at least a small, potentially a large, reactionary mutiny that you must deal with, that you must mitigate and massage, or otherwise put down. It is obvious, I think, with this list, there is no good solution to people that are unwilling to do their assigned work. Regardless if someone is acting unwilling by being slow, flaky, or feigning their ignorance, they must all be treated the same. At some point, it is apparent when someone is unwilling to do their work. All said, every unwilling employee deserves to be asked why they are declining to do their job, and clearly understand that not doing their work will result in termination of their employment. When a manager suspects an employee is unwilling, they should have a one-on-one or a serious discussion, possibly with a witness, maybe another supervisor or human resources, to have a talk with the unwilling person to discuss their options and the situation and hear their explanations. When an employee firmly is unwilling, despite the unwilling talk, and the reason is not a standard, acceptable company justification. That's right, some companies have legitimate reasons to decline projects, like conscientious objectors declining military contracts. Well, continuing. I recommend firing these people swiftly and taking their badge and keys and walking them out immediately without any time to interact with any other staff or equipment. I have had fired employees literally format servers and flash their local and network storage devices, even purge source code, which included irrevocably writing data over files, so they could not even be recovered. And then there are people that ran around and, as the phrase says, pissed in every pot that they could before their last day or hour. They go to lunches and dinners and congregate all day long in cafeteria, around the water cooler, vending machines, just to bad mouth and lament their fate. There seemingly are no good things that come from keeping around fired, unwilling people. So I say toss the bad apples out with the bushel immediately. Waste no time. And then the second reason people fail: the unable. The person does not have the ability and cannot attain the ability to do or complete the objective. These are legitimate tasks that someone is simply physically or mentally incapable of completing. And those tasks should not be assigned to those people under any circumstance. If a task is a requirement of a job, and it will be recurring, and that person cannot do it, they should not have been given the job. That would be a bad hire. And people should be informed ahead of time if there are such requirements, so that they can choose not to take the job, knowing that they would not be good at it. It is important to inform bad hires that it is actually the company's fault, not their fault, though you still must terminate their employment and find someone else to do the job. But it was the company's fault that they were hired in the first place. Ending the employment of someone that is unable to do work assigned to them can be charged with a lot of legal risk. Is the person unable because of a medical condition or temporary substance abuse problem? A progressing addiction? Is there a problem at home or with a person's family that is preventing them from doing their assignments? Many counties and states and cities and countries have laws protecting staff from losing their jobs for being unable to do the work if the reason is a handicap, an injury, a sickness, or from some other health or psychiatric condition or disability. It is a potential rat's nest of issues to fire an unable person. Obviously, the best thing is to have done a better job defining the role before you hired someone who was unable to do the job. But in such cases, you must own the mistake and find some work that person can do, or pay them out sufficiently so that they may move on. But you must be fair and honest and follow human resources directions and comply with the law. Sometimes jobs and projects change so much that employees and work no longer fit each other. It is simply the way that evolving businesses and opportunities may change. This is where people should be laid off, since it is neither the employees nor the company's fault. Employees should be paid as generously as possible for a legitimate elimination of their job. And of course, layoffs should probably target people who are unable first. And finally, the third reason people fail: the ignorant. Ignorant people do not possess the knowledge necessary to do the assigned work. However, given sufficient time, they are capable of learning and becoming capable of doing the job. Failure due to ignorance is the best kind of failure. It is a learning opportunity, as the saying goes. If the project and company can afford someone learning how to do the work, it is often a great investment for the company. Staff appreciate being given the chance to learn and often feel gratitude for the change of pace and focus. They appreciate the recognition that things can be hard, and management recognizes sidebar education from the main project is valuable. In my experience, ignorant staff become loyal, dedicated experts when given the chance to learn at the company, especially if the company also assigns a mentor to further assist learning and growth. In the unfortunate scenario that the company cannot afford to train someone to overcome their gap in required knowledge, then they should be laid off, since it is a misalignment of ability to job need. The bottom line: unable and unwilling people are showstoppers. Ignorant people can be trained if the company can afford the time and money. I learned from a vice president a technique during the printed business card era of placing business cards around the table, matching where people sat around the table. When business cards were no longer relevant, I did the same thing by writing the names of people and their roles or titles on a sheet of paper. The idea was to mirror their placement so you could look down at their personal business card or paper and see immediately who they were by name, job title, phone number, work address, etc. There was an imaginary invisible line connecting the card or piece of paper with name to the seated person across the table, thereby allowing easy reference to the person's first name, which could add a very personal touch and show respect and value, and of their role on the team. Eventually, printed business cards, like I mentioned, became a thing of the past as everything went digital. But without business cards, like I say, you can still just write down the same information on a pad of paper. Just arrange them in the same order as they sit around the table. If I ever missed someone, I would just try and deduce who they were and their role throughout the meeting and round out my seat placement notes at the top of my notepad sheet. And the notepad of placement also served to confirm who was present at any given meeting and which professional disciplines like engineering, art, music, game design, production, etc. attended and who sat together. It often showed their priorities and who had a voice within their company. The technique may have evolved, but it remained the same in the sense that it was a great tool to both make a personal touch with people and identify who were the voices and decision makers in groups. There's not much more to say here, but one fateful meeting I had where I extended my business card, as was customary, and the young woman looked bewildered, and upon taking my card expressed, "We don't do that anymore," with a very dinosaur, judgy undertone. I saw then that I had to make sure that I was connected and current. I never imagined before that I was not. I had a similar experience much later when a public relations partner talked about tweeting, and yet I had not heard of Twitter or tweeting yet. There were significant evolutions that I had missed, but I made it a priority to never let pop culture get by me again. I watched YouTube and all sorts of current streams that could be found on the web. I expanded my reading to include vapid pop culture people, events, Hollywood, music, etc. People were generally surprised, if not totally dismayed, by how much I knew about pop culture and music and fashion, given my nerd tech role and background. It has been my experience that people typically leave problems without addressing them, instead of pursuing opportunities that benefit them. In other words, opportunity very commonly coexists with challenges if it does not exist in direct opposition to a major problem that must be overcome. Problems exist in the path of opportunity most of the time, because the problems themselves are often the opportunity itself. But overcoming those problems yields meaningful rewards. Many people see opportunity but are unwilling to take the leap to attain it or endure the hardships necessary to achieve them. In fact, people run from challenges and problems and consequently miss out on significant opportunities had they just grinned and bore it for a little bit longer. Even worse for people running from problems to avoid conflict or risk is that they tend to run right into a different problem, sometimes as a direct consequence of not resolving their original problem. I have coined the phrase, "Do not displace your problems, fix them." It was a simple concept, but apparently one that most big company people are unwilling to do. They are commonly risk-averse at big companies, and they prefer to hide in the folds of corporate inefficiencies and fat. It was usually the lesser talented people that struggled to compete on a side-by-side comparative level, and/or who were sycophants focusing on idle praise and compliments to get promoted rather than delivering impactful, meaningful, measurable, valuable work. Throughout my life, I have despised the losers in the fold of the fat. They have been the downfall of many good teams. Their lower contribution has forced teammates to pick up the slack and work harder and longer. I am proud to be Crispy Heart and to learn how to navigate the complexities of big corporations. Indeed, I had so much ignorance in how to work in a mega company. I had and still have so much to learn.